The war had ended, or so the galaxy believed. Humanity, once feared across the stars as Deathworlders, had vanished from major theaters of conflict. The Zorakthal Alliance, a coalition of over 30 species, celebrated their triumph over Earth's last known stronghold 3 standard years ago. They broadcasted the footage of human warships falling silent, orbitals shattering, and Earth's transmission channels going dark. In every bar, every command deck, and every juvenile learning hall, the same phrase was echoed: the humans are finished. But even in victory, they whispered. Captains lowered their voices when recounting the last time a human war cry echoed through the void. Intelligence officers dismissed reports of solitary Terran scouts, disabling ships without firing a shot. Prison guards on distant moons refused to speak about the chilling calm with which human prisoners met death. Among the younger races, the war was over. Among the older ones, those who had lived through the first skirmishes, they waited with unease. It began on Velith Prime, a mining colony run by the Vexry Consortium. The Sons of the Storm, an elite unit of surviving human fighters, had been captured months prior, held in containment chambers 2 miles below the crust. Their executions were to be public, a final insult to human pride. The prisoners stood tall, silent, despite their broken bodies and poisoned food. The executioners broadcast the event to the outer systems, claiming another nail had been driven into Earth's coffin. One of the sons, a boy no older than 25 cycles, whispered just before the plasma bolt struck, "You've awakened her." It was dismissed as madness, a last curse, but the words echoed. 3 days later, the prison's command station experienced a power fluctuation. Diagnostic scans revealed no technical errors, just drift, dimming. Surveillance logs from the sector began reporting flickers, shapes in the periphery, shadows moving against lightless corridors. Outposts stopped transmitting. Drones went dark. When backup was dispatched, they found empty facilities. No signs of struggle. No bodies. Only silence and a strange smell, earth pine and ash. An intelligence unit in the Zorakthal Corps gathered to review these anomalies. They dismissed initial reports. Folklore. Superstition. But then came the data packet. A classified file pulled from a Terran Black archive. It was old, incomplete, corrupted. It referenced something called Operation Cradlefire and a code name, YGA. The lead analyst, a Zyrovian with 12 honor claws and a century of war data under its belt, opened a file expecting a myth. Instead, it found a dossier. Not on a weapon, not on a ship, on a woman, unarmed, unranked, untraceable. Last seen 3 years before Earth silence. The file ended with a warning stamped in red Terran glyphs. Do not engage. Do not follow. If sighted, pray. The analyst marked the file as irrelevant, a product of human psychological warfare. But it could not ignore the timeline. Every time she had been sighted in the past, systems failed, facilities fell, and no human force had been present, just her. No footage existed beyond blurred captures. No biological scans were ever completed. Those who tried, according to field notes, did not survive. Still, the Zorakthal believed themselves above myth, superior in tech and coordination. So they continued. One by one, their forward command stations along the Velith Ridge ceased communication. No explosions, no signals, no wreckage, just absence. The commanders called it sabotage, fear, until a message arrived. It was a handwritten note, on Terran paper, delivered via drop pod from an unregistered vector. You took my sons. I am coming. Panic spread, not because of the words, but because no ship was detected. No pod had entered their space. The note simply appeared, authenticated with DNA markers tied to a woman long presumed myth. They tracked the origin to a derelict vessel orbiting a dead moon. Scans showed no heat, no life, no systems. A team was sent. They found the vessel empty, except for 3 bodies, all Zorakthal, positioned in a triangle around a chair. None bore wounds. All expressions were locked in terror. By now, the outer systems were rioting. Soldiers began abandoning posts. Officers begged for reassignment to non-human sectors. Morale collapsed. The phrase had spread, whisper like poison, Baba Yaga walks. They tried to kill the name, censored transmissions, scrubbed data, threatened officers who mentioned it. But the fear was already embedded. A story older than the war, hidden under tactical reports and redacted logs, re-emerged, not of a soldier, but of a guardian, a woman who raised the worst of humanity's warriors in silence, teaching them how to survive anything, even extinction. In the core worlds, the Supreme Command gathered. Orders were clear: discredit the myth, demonstrate control. A new wave of propaganda was unleashed. Baba Yaga was a tale, a delusion. They aired mockeries of the name, paraded simulations showing how easily she would fall. But no one laughed, because on the mining world of Corellan Drift, an entire detachment of troops surrendered without enemy presence. They piled their weapons outside the command post and requested asylum on neutral ships. When interrogated, their only response was, "She passed by." No recordings, no encounters, just shadows and the smell of pine. Interrogators noted a shared detail among the deserters, a recurring dream of an old woman watching them from behind trees. Always silent, always still, always near. The Supreme Command issued protocol red silence. Deny, deflect, destroy. But even their enforcers were not immune. A security cruiser carrying senior officials exploded mid-transit. No weapons fired. No anomalies detected. The last message in the captain's console was a whisper, barely audible: "She's aboard." Fleet Admiral Kazaruan, one of the last veteran leaders of the war, issued a private memo to all corps commanders. It was brief. "If the crone seeks vengeance, we will not stop her. Prepare fallback options. Speak no more of this." His cruiser vanished 2 days later. No wreckage. By the 5th week, 23 military installations across 7 sectors had gone dark. Not destroyed. Not conquered. Dark. The only consistency was the aftermath. Human prisoners gone. Systems shut down, and a piece of paper left behind. Every time the same message: "I have taken back what is mine." Alien species began reaching out to neutral zones for shelter. Some fled to species they once enslaved. Others took their own lives rather than risk an encounter. Entire mercenary fleets refused contracts if they involved Terran space. By the end of the 8th week, Baba Yaga was no longer a myth. She was a warning. And the galaxy remembered too late what the humans had once said: "We don't need armies to break you. Sometimes all we need is a mother." Word of Baba Yaga's return spread through the undercurrent of galactic communication, not by official channels, but through whispered data bursts and encrypted soldier forums. The Zoraktho High Council, once untouchable in their marble towers, now operated from secure bunkers on rotating locations. They avoided routine, fearful that pattern recognition might invite her attention. Their advisors spoke of quelling fear through force, but none volunteered to lead. To the horror of the galaxy, she was not moving blindly. She had a pattern. Each location she visited had held Sons of the Storm. Each one had been labeled by the Zoraktho as cleanse of Terran threat. Intelligence analysts noticed too late that these sites shared one forgotten detail. These weren't just military outposts. They were places once home to human orphans, abducted by alien forces to be turned or broken. Baba Yaga wasn't just recovering soldiers. She was retrieving children. The High Council commissioned the Interspecies Elite Division to eliminate the threat, comprised of cybernetic assassins, psych war specialists, and infiltration units trained on Deathworld-class planets. They were told to strike fast and leave nothing. Their ships arrived at Telexis for the last known location of a Baba Yaga sighting. 2 hours later, they were gone. Not destroyed. Gone. Their last recorded transmission was a static-filled voice repeating a phrase in Old Terran Russian, untranslated in time. From that point, even the most aggressive species paused. Galactic powers began pulling resources inward. Border patrols dissolved. Even slaver guilds ceased operations, fearing retribution. The economic networks of conquest faltered as contractors fled, all because of a woman who never raised a weapon. A month into the silent campaign, an intercepted message stunned the galaxy. It came from a human operative previously believed dead, Kale, a founding member of the Sons of the Storm, presumed executed 3 years prior. His message, sent on a buried Terran frequency, was brief. She's not just freeing us. She's reminding you why Earth was left alone for centuries. The translation shook the command centers across 20 systems. Earth had not been isolated due to weakness. It had been avoided. The old understanding reemerged. Death worlds aren't pacified. They're quarantined. Humanity wasn't conquered. They allowed the war and then they left. The Council dispatched the Null Fleet, a weaponized battle group designed for extinction-level campaigns. Its commander, O'Rothyreem, held no belief in legends. His flagship, the Star Randoman, was equipped with predictive AI, reality anchors, and entropy shields. He swore publicly that he would find Baba Yaga and end the fear. 3 days into the campaign, the Star Randoman stopped transmitting. The rest of the Null Fleet arrived in system to find the ship intact but empty. No crew, no energy readings, no battle. A single object floated in its command chamber, a child's doll, hand-stitched in Terran style, with ash embedded in the fabric. Carved into the metal beside the captain's chair were words, not in blood, not in paint, but seared into the titanium. You took my family. I am taking yours. In response, a splinter faction within the Alliance attempted to sue for peace. They claimed no knowledge of the abductions. They offer reparations. A delegation was sent to a neutral planet to meet whoever represented her. When they arrived, the entire site was empty. Not a single diplomat had shown. But upon returning to their ship, they found something impossible. Each member of the delegation had a message scrawled on their bed in their native languages. You do not get to apologize for genocide. The faction collapsed within a week. Its members hunted not by humans, but by their own kind, fearful of being linked to the events. The unraveling accelerated. Civil wars ignited among the Zorakthol's client species. Command structures dissolved. Loyalty eroded. Entire sectors became lawless. On the former human prison world of Krythan. 6. A strange phenomenon was recorded. Dozens of prisoners, human-alien hybrid, vanished without any breach detected. When authorities checked the security records, the system displayed no footage, only a static image of a forest path. Investigators attempted to restore the footage, but every attempt rendered the same outcome: pine trees, a dirt road, and faint footsteps. This was followed by a data cascade across galactic networks. An untraceable broadcast looped for 8 standard hours, a lullaby in an old Terran dialect. Linguists struggled to identify its exact origin, but those who listened reported similar symptoms: fatigue, then visions of fire, then silence. Most who watched the full loop refused to speak afterward. Fear became weaponized. Even species who had never fought humans began deleting old records, hoping to erase any evidence of complicity. One high-ranking admiral of the Varaxi Imperium destroyed his own fleet after uncovering that he had once signed off on a forced relocation of human children during the early war. When questioned by subordinates, he simply said, "I remember her eyes." Soon, non-combatant groups began seeking out surviving Terrans, not to fight, but to beg for protection. Former enemies offered passage, gifts, entire moons in exchange for the promise that Baba Yaga would spare them. No Terran answered. The silence was worse than rejection. By the end of the second month, only 2 systems remained under confident Zorakthol control. One was their homeworld. The other, the heavily fortified archive planet known as Nelavarkon. It was here that they believed she could be stopped. Their logic, information. If they could uncover who and what she truly was, they might find a flaw. So they opened the vault of war records. Inside were files going back millennia. Projects buried, assassinations hidden, species purged. In the deepest chamber, surrounded by null fields and quantum locks, they found it, a scroll, human-made, dated before the war began. It listed the names of abducted Terran children. Next to each name, a symbol, an owl, a skull, or a flame. Analysts realized too late. These were her children, her adopted sons. the Sons of the Storm. The war had not been about territory. It had been about family. She hadn't come to reclaim soldiers. She came to take back her blood. The final entry was newer, added by hand after the list had been archived. A single line: "You never understood, you never will." The archive burned less than a day later, its defenses bypassed as if they never existed. The final transmission was a whisper over every frequency: "I'm not done." And the galaxy, for the first time in centuries, began to understand fear. Not of war, not of death, but the quiet steps of Mother walking across stars, unarmed, unstoppable, and wrathful beyond comprehension.